pay close attention, because what I'm sharing next can spare you immense heartache, doubt, and drained vitality. After more than 10 years immersed in human behavior, ancient insights, and the way relationships work, I've pinpointed 5 distinct phrases. When a man utters these to you, they expose his genuine agenda so starkly. Ignoring them is like disregarding a smoke detector blaring in your own home. These aren't merely warning signs, they are mental games cloaked in everyday chat. And once you recognize them, you'll spot them every time. Stick with me through to the finish. The 5th one is incredibly subtle yet so damaging that 99% of women overlook it entirely, and it's likely the most vital lesson you'll grasp this year for safeguarding your energy. Before we explore these 5 statements, there's a crucial understanding that will permanently alter your view of every male interaction. Most women have been conditioned to offer endless chances, to focus on what could be instead of what is, to mend rather than to shield. This conditioning is so ingrained that we've muted our natural radar for emotional takers. And yes, that's precisely what I'm labeling them. Emotional takers who employ specific speech patterns to probe your limits, lower your expectations, and make you doubt your inherent value. The age-old Chinese concept of Shi Heng tells us that expressions carry a vibration, and when someone addresses you, they're not just relaying facts. They're transmitting their inner condition, their motives, and their degree of respect for you straight into your personal energy field. This explains why certain discussions leave you feeling depleted, muddled, or doubting yourself. Even when you can't identify exactly what felt wrong, your intuition was detecting the energetic footprint of manipulation, but your rational mind attempted to explain it away. What I'm about to unveil isn't merely relationship guidance. It's a method of energetic self-protection that will shield not just your heart, but your entire life's direction. Because here's the unspoken truth: the partner you select doesn't only influence your love life, he impacts your career, your friendships, your bond with family, your self-regard, your financial prospects, and even your physical well-being. Choose poorly and you'll dedicate years of your vital spark to recovering from the harm. Choose wisely, or even better, learn to spot and detach from the unsuitable ones instantly, and you cultivate room for something wonderful to arrive in your life. The first statement that should have you sprinting, not just walking, away is when a man declares you're overly sensitive, or any similar remark like, "You're just being theatrical," or "You're exaggerating." This statement is mental games at its peak because it's engineered to make you doubt your own grasp of reality. When a man brushes off your emotional reactions as excessive, he isn't critiquing your sensitivity. He's showing his incapacity to deal with a woman who recognizes her value and voices her truth. Here's the underlying dynamic. When he says this, he's checking if you'll discard your own emotional insight to suit his ease. He's testing if you'll diminish yourself to make him appear larger. A man who genuinely holds you dear doesn't invalidate your feelings, he becomes curious about them. He poses questions. He listens attentively. He attempts to grasp your viewpoint even if he doesn't immediately concur. When a man suggests your natural emotional responses are flawed or too much, he's essentially communicating that he prioritizes his own comfort over your genuine self-expression. The most treacherous aspect of this statement is that it plants a tiny worry that expands over time. You begin to second-guess every feeling, every gut instinct, every flash of intuitive insight. You start to police yourself constantly, wondering if you're being too much again. This is precisely what emotional takers desire. They want you cut off from your inner compass because your intuition is the sole thing that can shield you from their manipulation. Women who've endured this kind of dismissal often find, years later, they must reconstruct their connection with their own emotions. They've lost contact with what they truly feel because they've been conditioned to think their feelings are invalid. This is an attack on your spirit, and it's prevalent in relationships everywhere because we've accepted it as typical male behavior. But I'm here to state that conscious, evolved men don't behave this way. They realize a woman's emotional richness isn't a flaw to correct, but a quality to respect. The second statement that should make you flee is, "I'm only being straightforward," or "I'm just giving you the facts," particularly when it's after a harsh, uncalled for, or intentionally wounding remark. This statement is a manipulative play designed to frame meanness as a strength. When someone employs honesty like a blade, they're not being truthful, they're being harmful and attempting to make you feel obliged for the harm. True honesty stems from a place of affection and sincere concern for the other's welfare. It's offered with gentleness, empathy, and thought for timing and situation. When a man says something deliberately wounding and then hides behind the "just being honest" shield, he's revealing he either completely lacks empathy or relishes causing you distress and wants to make it your issue for being hurt. I've witnessed this pattern systematically crush women's self-regard. He'll criticize your looks, your mind, your aspirations, your friends, your family, anything important to you. And when you share that his words sting, he'll behave as if you're the issue for not valuing his honesty. This forms a mental snare where you start to think that love involves accepting harshness and that requesting kindness makes you fragile or demanding. The reality is, a man who loves you will instinctively want to uplift you, not bring you down. Yes, tough discussions are sometimes necessary in relationships, but they occur with consideration, aiming to fortify the connection, not to belittle you as an individual. When someone persistently uses honesty as a justification for being cruel, they're showing you they don't have your true well-being in mind. They're more keen on showing power than on fostering real closeness. What makes this statement especially hazardous is that our society has taught us to prize honesty over kindness. So we frequently feel we should be thankful when someone is real with us, even if that realness feels like an emotional assault. But here's what I need you to grasp: you can experience both honesty and kindness. In truth, genuine honesty lacking compassion isn't honesty at all. It's merely cruelty masked as virtue. The third statement that should trigger every internal alarm is, you're acting controlling. When you articulate a limit, a requirement, or a worry about his conduct, this is pure gaslighting, and it's intended to make you fearful of standing up for yourself in the relationship. When a man tags your sensible requests as controlling, he's conditioning you to cease asking for what you require. Let me be perfectly clear about what boundaries truly are. They aren't about control, they aren't ultimatums, and they aren't penalties. Boundaries are simply you conveying what you need to feel secure, respected, and cherished in the connection. When you state things like, I need you to message if you'll be late, or I'm not okay with how you addressed me, or I need us to have focused time together without interruptions, you're not being controlling. You're being unambiguous about your standards. A man who counters your boundaries by calling you controlling is exposing a vital part of his nature. He thinks his liberty is more crucial than your tranquility. He's demonstrating that he perceives your needs as hindrances to his ease rather than vital data on how to cherish you. Well, this isn't the bedrock of a sound relationship. This is the bedrock of a dynamic where you progressively lose your identity trying to sidestep being labeled too much. What befalls women in these circumstances is distressing. They start to diminish their needs, play down their unease, and tolerate treatment that contradicts their core values because they've been persuaded that having standards means being controlling. They begin to take pride in being effort and easygoing, not grasping they're actually forsaking themselves to placate someone who doesn't prioritize their welfare. Here's what you must understand. A man who truly loves you desires to know your boundaries because he aims to respect them. He comprehends that your boundaries aren't restrictions on the relationship. They are the structure that enables trust and closeness to grow. When you feel secure enough to voice your needs without being labeled or ignored, you can genuinely unwind into the relationship and appear as your most authentic, loving self. The men who accuse you of being controlling for having boundaries are the very same men who will exploit you if you lack them. They desire full access to you while offering the bare minimum back. They crave the perks of a committed bond without the duty that accompanies genuinely caring for another's heart. The fourth statement is possibly the most understated yet equally damaging. I'm not prepared for a relationship, or I don't desire anything committed right now. But here's the crucial part. He says this while concurrently behaving as if you are in a relationship. He messages you nonstop, dedicates most of his leisure time to you, introduces you to his companions, perhaps even his relatives, shares private aspects of his life, and fosters all the emotional closeness of a serious bond while openly stating that's not what this is. This statement is emotional manipulation disguised as forthrightness, and it's crafted to grant him all the advantages of having you present without any of the responsibility that comes with genuinely selecting you. He gets to enjoy it all. He receives your emotional backing, your physical tenderness, your time, your energy, and your devotion while keeping the option to leave whenever he wishes without remorse, because he warned you from the start he wasn't prepared. What makes this especially crushing is that it places you in an untenable situation. If you remain and tolerate the setup, you're basically consenting to be devalued and viewed as disposable. If you articulate a desire for more, he can refer to his initial disclaimer and make you feel like you're the one altering the terms. If you depart, you feel like you're discarding something that might eventually become genuine if you just hold on longer. But here's what I need you to realize. When a man truly desires to be with you, genuinely be with you, there's no ambiguity. There's no not prepared or unsure or let's see how this unfolds. When a man acknowledges your value and wishes to secure his position in your life, he acts with purpose and directness. The men who keep you in relationship purgatory aren't uncertain about their desires. They know precisely what they desire, to have you accessible without needing to fully commit to you. This dynamic is particularly agonizing because it keeps you emotionally tied while systematically chipping away at your sense of self-value. You start to think you're not worthy enough to be chosen completely, that you must demonstrate your value by settling for less than you truly desire. You begin to view commitment as something to be earned rather than something you merit simply by being you. The most treacherous aspect is that these men often do care for you. They like your presence. They find you attractive. They might even love you in their own restricted fashion, but they prioritize their own liberty and choices over your joy and safety. They'd rather keep you in a vague situation than risk losing access to you by being upfront about their motives. Now, we arrive at the fifth and most perilous statement, the one so subtle that most women don't even identify it as manipulation until much later when they're attempting to reconstruct their identity. This statement is, "You've changed," but not in a positive sense. He delivers it with disappointment, with accusation, with the undertone that the individual you're becoming is somehow inferior to who you were when he first knew you. This statement is spirit-breaking because it's designed to make you forsake your development, your evolution, and your true self to revert to a version of you that was more convenient for him. When a man says, "You've changed," as a form of criticism, he's revealing that he was drawn to your capacity to meet his needs, not to your potential to become who you are truly meant to be. Here's what's actually occurring: you're developing, evolving, establishing limits, chasing your aspirations, voicing your truth, or simply growing more self-assured. And instead of applauding this development, instead of feeling honored to observe your evolution, he feels endangered by it. Why? Because the version of you he favored was smaller, more compliant, more centered on him, and less on your own growth. This statement is particularly damaging because it strikes at your most sensitive point, your desire to be loved and accepted for who you are. When someone you care for suggests your growth is a betrayal of your true self, it sparks a psychological dilemma. You start to doubt if becoming more yourself is worth the potential loss of love. You begin to consider if you should shrink back to the size that felt less threatening for him. I've observed women give up their dreams, their connections, their career ambitions, and their personal advancement because a man made them feel their evolution was somehow self-centered or incorrect. They cease therapy because he claims it's altering them. They stop pursuing their interests because he preferred when their focus was more on him. They stopped defining boundaries because he liked them better when they were more obliging. But here's what you must grasp. At the deepest core, a man who genuinely loves you doesn't just tolerate your growth, he champions it. He feels thrilled when he sees you becoming more confident, clearer about your desires, more linked to your purpose. He understands that your growth doesn't endanger the relationship, it enriches it because you're bringing more of your genuine self to the bond. When a man faults you for changing, he's essentially telling you he preferred you when you were less than you're capable of becoming. He's conceding that his affection was conditional upon your readiness to remain small. This isn't affection, this is ownership. This is someone who desires to possess you rather than cherish you. The most painful part is that women often take this statement as proof they've erred, that they've betrayed the relationship by growing. They feel blameworthy for becoming more themselves. They apologize for occupying more space, for having clearer limits, for chasing their dreams with greater passion. They start to see their own evolution as selfish instead of the natural path of a healthy, aware human being. Now that you're aware of these 5 statements and their true implications, you might be experiencing a range of emotions. Perhaps you're identifying patterns from your past. Maybe you're viewing current relationships through a new lens. Perhaps you're feeling upset that no one shared this with you sooner. Maybe you're feeling thankful you're learning it now. All these emotions are legitimate, and I encourage you to acknowledge whatever is surfacing for you. But here's what I need you to realize. This knowledge isn't intended to make you bitter about romance or wary of every man you encounter. This is about cultivating sharp judgment, the skill to differentiate between individuals who genuinely care about your welfare and those primarily focused on what they can extract from you. This is about learning to listen to your gut when something feels amiss, even if you can't immediately pinpoint why. The truth is, there are men in this world who will never utter these statements to you because they understand that love involves creating security, not probing limits. There are men who applaud your sensitivity because they see it as emotional insight. There are men who convey difficult truths with gentleness because they actually care about your feelings. There are men who honor your boundaries because they realize boundaries foster closeness, not separation. There are men who commit to you clearly and wholeheartedly because they acknowledge your value. There are men who delight in watching you grow because they understand that your expansion enhances the relationship rather than jeopardizing it. These men are real, but you'll never spot them if you're preoccupied with justifying the actions of men who don't appreciate you. You'll never draw them in if you're accepting treatment that goes against your intuition. You'll never build anything beautiful with them if you're depleting your energy trying to mend someone who isn't keen on improving. Here's what I want you to do with this insight. Start observing how you feel after interactions with the men in your life. Note if you feel invigorated or depleted. Note if you feel seen and cherished or muddled and belittled. Note if you feel prompted to be more yourself or pressured to be less yourself. Your body knows the truth, and your energy never deceives. Begin trusting your initial gut feelings instead of reasoning yourself out of them. If something feels wrong in the initial weeks of knowing someone, it likely is. If you find yourself justifying someone's actions or trying to persuade yourself their words didn't imply what you sensed they meant, heed that. If you observe yourself altering your character, your ambitions, or your standards to suit someone else's ease, that's crucial data about the dynamic you're fostering. Most importantly, I want you to understand that detaching from people who don't value you isn't harsh, it's self-respect. It's not abandoning hope for love, it's creating room for authentic love to enter your life. Every instant you invest trying to persuade someone to treat you right is an instant you're unavailable for someone who would never consider treating you poorly. The ideal person for you won't demand that you make yourself smaller, justify your value, or settle for scraps. The ideal person will recognize your value instantly and act on it. They won't need convincing to choose you, because choosing you will feel like the most natural thing imaginable. I want to share something with you that entirely shifted my view on relationships. Your limits aren't barriers that keep affection out, they're entryways that welcome the right affection in. When you clearly state what you require to feel secure and cherished, you're not being difficult or demanding. You're being clear about the terms under which you can appear as your most loving, giving, genuine self. The individuals who push back against your limits aren't the ones you want in your life anyway. The individuals who applaud your limits, who ask considerate questions about how to respect them, who alter their behavior because they want you to feel good in their company, these are your people. These are the individuals who grasp that love isn't about grabbing whatever you can, it's about fostering an environment where both individuals can thrive. Every time you respect your own limits, you're instructing others on how to treat you. Every time you detach from someone who ignores your needs, you're making a declaration about your worth that echoes through every aspect of your life. Every time you prioritize yourself over another's comfort, you're laying the groundwork for relationships founded on mutual regard rather than one-sided compromise. This isn't about becoming hardened or withdrawn. This is about becoming clear and deliberate about who gains access to your energy, your time, your body, and your heart. This is about realizing that your love is invaluable and should be offered to people who acknowledge its worth, not to those who dismiss it. Here's the ultimate truth I want to impart to you, and this might be the most crucial thing you absorb today. You are not tasked with mending people who wound you. You are not tasked with instructing people on how to love you correctly. You are not tasked with remaining in situations that dull your shine just because someone else isn't prepared to embrace their own strength. Your role is not to be so understanding, so patient, so forgiving that you lose your identity in the process. Your role is not to love people into becoming superior versions of themselves. Your role is to be genuine, to honor your own requirements, to listen to your gut, and to build a life that feels harmonious with your deepest principles. The love you seek is also seeking you, but it can only discover you when you cease settling for anything less than you merit. It can only spot you when you're being entirely yourself, not when you're feigning to be smaller or simpler or more convenient for another. So, the next occasion someone utters one of these 5 statements to you, I want you to recall this discussion. I want you to draw a deep breath, trust what you inherently know, and make the decision that honors your value. Because you deserve affection that feels like liberation, not affection that feels like confinement. You deserve affection that applauds your development, not affection that penalizes it. You deserve affection that views your sensitivity as a treasure, not affection that treats it like a liability. Detach from anyone who makes you doubt your value. Move toward people who celebrate it. Your future self will be grateful for your courage to choose yourself, even when it feels daunting, even when it feels challenging, even when it means detaching from potential that was never truly present. The right affection won't require you to sacrifice yourself to obtain it. The right affection will feel like returning to yourself, not abandoning yourself. Trust that, choose that, and never, ever accept less than that again.